Well, it's Friday, March, I think the 13th. Yeah, Friday the 13th. So I probably should not be doing my drive to work video today like I have done a few times lately. But I was thinking, I'm coming up on my 57th birthday. It's a few short days away. And gosh, just the things I've experienced have been, some of them have been really cool, some of them not so much. But I was thinking back to the early 90s, and even a little bit before that. I graduated high school in '87, and the late '80s were cool in a lot of respects because there was the emergence of MTV, and that spawned the awareness and huge followings of cool bands. Like, the production companies would throw millions of dollars at music videos for big bands like Guns N' Roses and, say, just for example, Duran Duran, if that's your thing. But there were shows like, not only did you have MTV, but there were shows like Friday Night Videos that would play until midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. And I can remember vividly going to school on Friday and then watching Friday Night Videos until midnight or 1, and just being just completely sleepy-eyed. I was recording it on the VCR too, but just couldn't wait to see what emerged after that. So the music thing was pretty cool at the time. And then also, this was pre-internet, as I'm sure everybody is aware, but that part of it can't really be overstated because the information you had access to was much, much more limited. We had magazines. You'd go to your grocery store or whatever and check out the new magazines, and there'd be magazines about music like Hit Parader and Circus, I think was one. There's a few you could pick from, and you could see like pictures of live performances, and it seemed like came out of California at the time. Like Los Angeles was just the place to be if you were really interested in the music scene and who was doing what in terms of popularity. I think Def Leppard might have been the exception to that. They came to the U.S. at some point along the way, and they're still here as far as I know. I know Phil Collins lives in Los Angeles, not far from the Fender Guitar Factory, as a matter of fact. But anyway, so you had the music thing that if you were really into that, and I was. One other thing that was applicable at the time, and you have to kind of frame this in how old were you at the time. I was in '87. I graduated high school at 18, and ages 18, 19, 20, still at the time especially, very much at an influential age. Things I would experience, like bands and just anything that was cool, would have a huge impact on me. You just didn't get the inundation like you scroll Facebook today. Oh, that's cool, that's cool, that's cool. You have a whole lot of cool today, other than the social justice warrior crap. But anyway, back then, one of the things that a lot of us were into in high school was sports. You either played basketball or football or baseball or any combination thereof, all three for that matter. And football was my thing, but only because I just wasn't that great of a basketball player. I wasn't fast, I wasn't coordinated. I had the height, but kind of clumsy, just wasn't that well coordinated, and football just seemed to be a better fit. But you also had to be you had to have some body mass to play football effectively. Even back then at a little high school, I think our graduating class was like 90 people, 91 people. May not have even been that big, but yeah, the idea was you'd hit the gym, put on some muscle, be a better athlete. So it's kind of the same way it works now, but there were just people that had advantages that I didn't have, because when I graduated high school, I was 6'2" or 3" and weighed like 160 pounds. Just didn't have any sort of body mass with just any big, really talented running back in our county. Well, I would play defensive end, and if I didn't just dig in real hard, I would just get run over just because they outweighed me 60 pounds, So I graduated high school having accomplished not a whole lot in terms of sports, and that left me with a really, I'm reluctant to use the word disappointed, but yeah, I guess that would be correct. It wasn't that great of an experience. I had accomplished nothing. Actually, I had been in high school band in elementary school and stayed in it through junior high school. I would play junior high football on Tuesday night, and then on Friday night I would play in the band until I got into 10th grade, and then there was no way to both be in the band and play football. So I picked football, and in retrospect, that wasn't the best decision I ever made, because music is something I could have used throughout my life, and from football, all I had was a whole lot of less than stellar memories of doing a whole lot of watching, not much playing. When I did play, it wasn't impressive. That's just the reality of it. Further, the people that did play a lot and were more accomplished in high school sports, once they graduated high school, that was over. They got absolutely nothing for their effort, trouble, and pain and injuries. Literally nobody out of my senior class went and played college football that I know of. Certainly, I'm absolutely certain no one in my senior class played Division I college football, and frankly, in my opinion, that's the only college football worth watching. And even some Division I schools aren't, not the way you want to spend a perfectly good Saturday. Louisiana Tech, Division I school, I'm not going to spend my time on Saturday watching a La Tech game. So that left me after graduation with a kind of an unsatisfied, you put work into something and get nothing for it, and it just leaves you with this void, I guess. So I guess I was trying to come up with some ways to fill that void, and living in a small town like Athens, Alabama, there's just not a lot going on. I did love the music thing, but I think at the time there wasn't even really anywhere you could even buy a guitar. I mean, literally thought about buying an electric guitar, and there was nowhere locally you could go to get one. So one day I went to Decatur, and there was a music store there, and ended up bringing home a Peavey Predator electric guitar, and also discovered through the aforementioned magazines and such that you could get what's called a guitar preamp. So not long after that, I had myself and gosh, it was very expensive. It cost me like $650 at the time, just an obscene amount of money at the time for me, and didn't even know what it would do. But brought it home, plugged the guitar into it, and next thing you know, I'm sounding a whole lot more like the Def Leppard, all the stuff I really used to love to listen to. So I would come home from work at night and just spend hours and hours and hours learning their songs, bought the books with the tablature, and from having been in band in high school, I learned how to read music, so that was kind of handy. So invested a good bit of time in that.
Hazard reported ahead on I-565 East in half a mile.
Thank you.
You're still on the fastest route.
Stop. Thank you. Anyway, sorry about that. So anyway, but even with the music thing going on, and made some progress with that. I thought that was, a pretty good thing to do, having, I was already going to work every day, wasn't really checking any boxes in terms of things that were personally satisfying. So here's the guitar thing, and that doesn't have to be something I have to make a huge accomplishment out of, but it was fun to do and a skill set I could develop. Still, there was this, man, I invested, I'm young, I have some athletic ability now that I didn't even have in high school because I put on some weight and muscle. What can I do to maybe fulfill some unfulfilled things from high school? And not long after, somewhere around this time frame, I was working for my dad in an insurance agency, and there was a trip that came up. There was a young insurance agents convention that the insurance companies put on every year, and this one was in Atlanta. And I always loved dirt bikes too. I had a Honda Z50 when I was a kid and graduated to an Indian that was not quite as good of a bike, but bigger and had more power. Anyway, so dirt bikes were always cool. And ironically, the same weekend as this young agents convention that my dad was sending me to, and I was married at the time, so my wife went with me, the Supercross, it was the AMA Supercross, was in Fulton County Stadium. I had no clue what a Supercross was. You know, once again, we bounce back. This was at this point, early 90s. I think 1990 is when put this particular year. So, Supercross, okay, I don't even know what it is. I'll get us some time. The tickets were like $18, you know, so I bought a couple of tickets. And we get there, and I walk in. It could have been motorcycle slot car racing for all I knew. I had no clue what I was walking into. And walked in, and here's this cool motocross track laid out. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. Now, I happen to recall there was a motocross track within 5 miles of the house I grew up in. And a couple of times my parents took me over there, and it was pretty cool. You know, the bikes were jumping 15, 20 feet. You know, nothing by standards of Supercross, totally amateur hour. But it was cool to watch because you grow up in the middle of a cow pasture on Saturday night, and that's what you have. And wow, that was amazing for something that you didn't have access to otherwise. So anyway, so the practice and everything is already over by the time we get there, and they start. You know, they got the 125 class, and back then, of course, there were 2 strokes because 4 strokes just couldn't compete with 2 strokes. And how I wish it was still that way, because 2 strokes absolutely rule. They came out and practiced the 125s, and the triples were a huge thing because that was the longest jump on the track. And if I remember correctly, none of the 125s even hit the triples. They would double and then do a single. Well, after they got finished up with their heat 1, then the 250s came out. And one of the riders in the 250s was Guy Cooper. And he was on a Suzuki, if I recall correctly. I know he rode one that particular year. Might have been a Honda, but I think Suzuki. And came out, the gate dropped. Here comes just bat out of hell, absolutely just crazy fast, just impossible. Just watching this is just unbelievable to see. And Guy Cooper's right out front. He hits the triples and does this whip where the back of the bike goes way up high, out to the left. In this particular, you can do them to the right too, but this particular one was out to the left and way up high. From where we were sitting, it looked like he turned the bike all the way upside down. Just if satellites flying over could see the drain plug on the bottom of the case. And my jaw just dropped. Just my eyes were this big. My mouth was wide open, and I'm like, that's impossible. That is absolutely. And I thought, when I saw it happening, I thought he's about to crash. We're about to see an ambulance come out and get this guy. I never heard of him before, you know. Here's one guy that let his judgment get away from him, and the next thing I know, the bike was back under him, had the feet pointed back at the ground. He landed on the back side of the triple, and it was right back on the throttle, flying right into the next turn. And I'm like, we did not just see that happen. There's no way I just saw that happen. And on the next lap, he did it again. Well, of course he did it again. He's a professional motocross racer. But for me and my experience, that was the very first time I'd ever seen anything like that. And again, didn't even know what a Supercross was till I walked in that place. Well, ironically, the seats that we had were on right on the very lowest level, and right by the track. I mean, literally the first row off the track. And there was a little podium right in front of us, and that's where the riders that finished first, second, third would shake their champagne. So here I am on ESPN, and Dave Despain is commenting, and he's saying something like, because the riders were too young to drink the champagne, they sprayed it all over the fans. And my friends from home saw all this and went, there's Mark, and that part was really cool. So I left there that day thinking I accomplished nothing in football or basketball or whatever, and I'm going to do this. I am absolutely going to do this. 1 second. Good morning.
All right, sir, let your back window down for me.
Yes, sir. Well, pushing the button, but there we go.
All right, appreciate you, Mr. Johnson. You have a great day now.
All right, thank you. Yeah, the gate guards like to check the back seat. That's probably good. DEFCON 12 or whatever. So, I decided after seeing what I saw that night, I've ridden dirt bikes. I can do this. This is something that would be a lot of fun to do. So, through various checking with bike shops and stuff like that, when I got back home, I discovered there was a motocross track in Warrior, Alabama, which was about an hour from my house. The one that was opened by my parents' house when I was a child had closed down by this time. And it was very rocky, by the standards I was looking for. It was kind of rocky and all that stuff. Well, the track in Warrior, even at the time, in Supercross, the jumps there's a whole lot of jumps. It's very, very technical. You'd be in the air and be on the ground for a half second and be right back in the air, triple, hit the ground, go into some doubles, go into some time doubles, into some whoops, turn, and then right back on the gas, hitting another triple. I mean, it was literally a very, very busy. And correspondingly, the speeds were not just absolutely white knuckle. Didn't appear to be anyway. However, on this track in Warrior, Alabama, where I bravely showed up with my 1989 YZ125, underpowered, worst possible tire combination there's ever been on a dirt bike, I just decided I am going to race this race. Well, of course, I finished dead last, but I did run both heats. I think it was 10 laps. The guy that was in front of me, the next to last guy, finished a solid 30 seconds in front of me. So I literally held up the next race, because my slow butt was in over my head. But I decided I'm going to do this, and didn't really look at the technical disadvantages I had at the time. I didn't realize, hey, the Honda 125s are just faster. They make more power. You get a good tire on the bike, and you're going to go, especially back tire. Front tire might actually make a little difference too. I had hard terrain tires, and they were half worn out. But I did the best I could. And in retrospect, riding a bike that is harder to ride, harder to make a good lap time, made me a faster rider. I had to take advantage of the things that I could take advantage of, and that just led to some. Once I got a bike that was a faster bike and had better tires on it, next, just bam, I was running in the B class. It was just that quick and easy. But one of the things that I remember most about that time frame, there was one night I'd been racing 6 or 8 weeks. I mean, that's not a long time for somebody that's ridden motorcycles a little bit, and then you go to a motocross track and go down there with the guys that show up regularly, that's the every Saturday night regulars that know the track and know how to win and been doing that for years. Those guys are hard to beat. I mean, they are really hard to beat. So me and my underpowered 125 on week 6, consecutive week 6, I want to say, went down there, and there were 4 of us in the 125 race. There were only 4, and I don't know why, because there had been maybe a dozen that would show up and be on the gate for the 125s. So I was dead last, just absolutely dead last. But I noticed the guy in front of me had the same bike. He had a YZ 125, and he weighed a little more than me. He's a little bit overweight, and he would slow down. I'd raced against him a few times, and late in the race he would slow down. He'd get tired. He was not in good shape, not like I was at the time, because here we are again. You know, I weighed 160 pounds out of high school. I wasn't hauling around a whole lot of fat. So the very last lap, very last turn, I'm right behind him. I noticed I was on the outside of him in a left-hand turn, and I backed off the throttle just a tiny. This was also uphill, so disadvantage to both bikes because of the extra load, underpowered bike. I backed off the throttle just a tiny little bit, and ducked under his back tire. And the instant I saw it, didn't miss his back tire we're talking 6 inches of clearance. And as soon as I saw that I had cleared his back tire, right elbow up, throttle all the way open, leaned into it real hard, and the finish line jump was within 30 yards, and this puny little, I don't know, 20 horsepower, it had more horsepower than that, but seemed like 20 horsepower bike going up a hill. It managed to get up enough steam to make the pass, and when I got up to the finish line jump, I was a little bit squirrely, and the left side of the bike kicked out and went up, just like Guy Cooper's bike did that night at the Supercross. It was totally unintentional. I hit the face of the jump, turning slightly, trying to collect up what was about to be a yard sale. And I happened to remember, wow, and the sensation of having that bike just totally pancaked out, and hearing people, people had seen the pass, the last turn pass with 4 people in the race, and the 4th place rider finished 3rd, and these people were actually cheering for that outcome. And I was like, wow, that was just an amazing experience. But what happened next is the part I will never forget. They announce your name, even a little racetrack like that, especially with no more riders than were on the gate that night. They get over the PA system and they announce your name. And I could hear my name clearly, like, yeah, here's the guy that's going to finish dead last again. Was not dissuaded in any way. So all that I just mentioned happened. I finished 3rd out of 4 people. And after I got back to the truck and put the bike back on the stand, I had 5 or 6 little kids come up asking me, said, "Are you Marc Johnson?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they were like, "Well, can you sign this for us? Can you autograph this for us?" And I'm like, I finished 3rd in a race of 4 bikes. And these little kids were marveling over what I had done. And to me, it wasn't anything, it was cool not to finish dead last. And the way I did the pass was, I thought, smart. It was just a good, smart way to do it, safe way to do it. Nobody got hurt. But the kids that were running around, they always just constantly watched for the cool things to happen. And they told me that, man, that was the coolest thing we've seen all night. So you just never know, how you're going to affect other people. Like Guy Cooper affected me that night. I was just in amazement. And my impression was those kids, when they saw that happen, were in the same level of amazement that I was. Well, that's not where the story ends. For that particular night, it was. Sometime later, a couple of years later, actually, I stayed with it and developed my riding ability a good bit. Went to races all over the place. Had a practice track by my house. About 8:30 one morning, heard a knock on one Saturday morning. I heard a knock on the front door, got out of bed, and was like, I wonder if this is some encyclopedia salesman. I'm going to be real unhappy about this. Opened the door, and it was this little kid, like 15-year-old kid, and his littler brother that was like 9. And I glanced outside, and there was a little S10 pickup and pulling a trailer that had a couple of dirt bikes on it. And polite guy, little, 15-year-old, just polite as he could be. Good morning, sir. I was just wondering if it would be okay if we could ride on your track. And like, sure, buddy, go ahead, knock yourself out. Not literally, of course, but, and I asked him, I said, are you practiced up enough on the bike to be okay with going out there and doing the obstacles? Because, it wasn't a flat track. It was a motocross track. And he felt pretty sure he was, but I went out there with him anyway, and the kid was good. I mean, he had a Suzuki 125, and he could ride. Did a very good job. I was impressed. Well, not long after that, I met his mom and dad. And let me add to this part of it too. The kid drove. I lived actually out in Limestone County at the time on Section Line Road, which was 15 miles from where this kid lived. He drove all the way out there without a driver's license, had his little brother with him, pulling a trailer with motorcycles on the back. That's how casual things were at the time. So anyway, his parents were cool. We got along great. They started coming to races with us. There was a racetrack in Christiana, Tennessee that opened in 92. I'm pretty sure was the first race they ever had there. And this kid and his family went with us, his little brother too. And we get out there, and the gate's huge. I'm talking, it's probably 35 bikes on the gate, which, for a local race, for a race that's not even a pro race, that's a lot of bikes. I mean, talking a whole lot of bikes. So the gate drops, and I got tangled up in about the third turn, and didn't fare just too well in that one. So I didn't get too wound up with, a brand new track. Let's just learn the track. Let's make all the obstacles, see where we can trim some time off. And was just kind of watching for the best lines and all that stuff. And here comes this kid that had come to my house to ask to ride, just comes ripping around me in a right-hand turn, left elbow jacked way up by his ear, overgrip, just doing the overgrip thing, just like he was teaching schools on it, and just went ripping through. I mean, it just totally passing people and totally in control, solid rider. Very first trip to a motocross track, and he beat me by 4 slots, and I'd been racing for years at this time. He beat me by like 4 slots. So I thought, this kid's going to be something special if he stays with it. So his parents kept taking him to races, and he ended up going to Tunnel Hill and just several places. I went to Warrior, Alabama, the first track I ever went to, and did real well down there. And then one night, some years later, I turned on ESPN, and here he is in the middle of a 250 main in the Supercross, riding for Team Moto XXX. That rider's name is Clark Stiles. He was quite accomplished in the mid-2000s time frame, and I just remember just marveling at, just thinking how everything had come full circle. Here's this kid that is so talented, so much better than me. I worked hard at it. I hit the gym. I all the videos you could get your hands on to learn how to do better, and where to go, who to watch ride, who to watch out for, who to stay away from. Where are we going this weekend to develop our skill? Is there a race? Anyway? So this kid just cracks open this can of worms. Like, it's almost like he took everything I had built and started at that point. And to this day, I am so proud of what little participation I had in his success. today he works for Dunlop Tire over here in Madison, Alabama. And he teaches schools out at his house. He's got a great place out on, I think, Snake Road in Limestone County, Alabama. But just to think, all that happened that way because I bought 2 tickets to a Supercross because it happened to be in Atlanta the same weekend. I was going to be in Atlanta for something totally unrelated, and everything that played out just like it did because of that. And I saw Guy Cooper whip that RM250 upside down and was just amazed at his ability to defy the laws of physics. It affects me to this day. You know, again, this is 2026. I'll be 57 years old in a couple of short days. This all happened in 89 and 90. I mean, a long time ago. And everything that I didn't accomplish in high school, athletically speaking, it is so, to say I put a check in the box and covered all those needs is a huge understatement. I never went pro, but just had a great experience with motocross, and also got to see somebody I knew personally, and heck of a likable guy, turn pro and just be so accomplished and become a teacher. He teaches schools. I'll see him out places now, and it's just like, you know, just one of your best friends that you don't get to see very often, but you just never know how it's going to work out. Every bit of that story started out with 2 tickets that I didn't even know why I was buying, and watching Guy Cooper whip a RM250 completely upside down as if it couldn't be done.